Good afternoon to all. Thank you very much for inviting me to this very important, very interesting discussion about the future of the Amazon. I will basically tell you a little bit about the risks, but also I want to discuss with you solution space, and in particular one possibility. When we look at the way the world perceives the Amazon is green hell. Popular literature, films, so most people think deep forest is a green hell. However, this is certainly not the vision that the indigenous people have about the Amazon. They see it as green paradise. So, is it a green hell or a green paradise? Science has really to follow and to find ways to portray the Amazon as the Amazon is and the potential of the Amazon. For instance, it's a very important element of the global climate system, stabilizing the climate in the tropics. Rainfall is an essential element. Of course, it's a very potent hydrology, 50% of the water, and also, as you can see, the Amazon characterized by being very aseasonal. You don't see seasonality in greenness of the Amazon, so it's an important characteristic of this tropical forest. And not to mention the importance of biodiversity, the most biodiverse region of the planet, comparable to a few other places in the tropics. So, and of course as well, not only biological diversity, but also ethnic and linguistic diversity. This is very well known. The Amazon is a potent sink of carbon from the atmosphere. Currently, it removes between 1 and 2 billion tons of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere every year. It seems this power is declining and nobody knows exactly what's going to happen in the future due to climate change. But of course, we know the Amazon has been under a different model of development for 50 years, which has led to about 1 million square kilometers. Something between 16 and 17% has been deforested, you can see here. And of course, a model that followed a motto of that time, the 70s in Brazil, the occupation of the Amazon will follow the cattle's footsteps. And in fact, 70% of the forest areas in Brazilian Amazon are grazing land. However, we should understand what difference it will make conversion from tropical forest to pasture, which is the dominant mode, or even to crops like soy or cotton or corn. To start with, let's see, very deep roots in the Amazon, several meters, very shallow roots in grazing land, and rougher surface, making the interaction between the surface and the atmosphere much more effective in removing heat from the surface. Much smoother surface, it's more difficult to exchange water vapor and heat. And you know, summing it all, our knowledge today is that much higher evapotranspiration rates year-round, stronger water recycling compared to pasture, much less evaporation rates during the dry season. This is warmer, 1 to 2.5 degrees, much cooler, and the overall effect is higher humidity in the atmosphere, more rainfall, 2.4 meters of rain a year over the Amazon basin. Many calculations indicate 10 to 20% reduction in rainfall. So that's, we know for many experiments, many field studies and model studies. But if we look at the field, and this is the Xingu, we can see land use to 2010, the Xingu Indian Reservation here, and this is a temperature map, and you can see a major difference of temperature, 3-4 degrees of maximum temperature difference between forest areas and the surrounding, which has been deforested, mostly cattle ranches around here and soy agriculture to the south. So we can see there are many marked changes in microclimate and the fluxes of water vapor, heat, and also carbon. But of course, why is so important having a forest? Forests produce their own rain to some extent. The forest, we can see the rain in many parts, central eastern Amazon. There are episodes of rain, not heavy rainfall, downpours, squall lines. These are rains. 50% of the rain in central eastern Amazon falls in small rainfall episodes, less than 5 millimeters. And this is the type of rain which is being mediated by the forest by the evapotranspiration. And because of that, we proposed that we may have two equilibrium vegetations in the Amazon. One is forest all over the Amazon basin, as we know, as it exists, but the other solution would be a savanna in southeastern and central eastern Amazon, which would be also in equilibrium with a new climate. Those two states are possible, and the savanna might be very degraded due to fire and droughts. So we postulated this hypothesis of a savannization of the Amazon. Those two states are feasible, they are possible if the climate over central eastern Amazon changes to a drier climate. So how close we are to a tipping point in the Amazon? And so we have many drivers. One is climate change, global warming, but the most important element of global warming is not only temperature, but mostly hydrological changes. Most IPCC scenarios show a decline of rainfall over eastern and central Amazon. Of course, deforestation, still we are seeing increasing deforestation the last few years. Forest fires increasing tremendously. This is mostly human-made forest fires. And also scenarios of climate change indicate that in the future we might have more lightning. So if we really calculate with models what would be the combined effect of elevated CO2, which might have a positive effect, the so-called CO2 fertilization, global warming, deforestation, and forest fires. And we did that in a model simulation, putting all these four factors together, and basically we came up with a result that is a combined effect of all those factors. Here we have 2050, 20% deforestation, elevated CO2, and climate change, several scenarios, IPCC scenarios, and effect of fire. Basically, the answer is less than 50% of the forest will remain due to this change, the savannization of central eastern Amazon. So what's going on now in the Amazon? We are seeing something very atypical since 2005. Droughts in 2005, 10, 14, 15, floods in 2009 and 2012, all record-breaking. So the Amazon is going through extremes, oscillating in extremes. Is this a sign that we may be close to a tipping point? And also very troublesome is the fact that the dry season length over central eastern Amazon is increasing 6 days per decade in the last 30 years. So this is very worrisome. If the dry season length becomes typical of savanna, 4, 5, 6 months of dry season, that will become a savanna. So because of that, we publish, Tom Lovejoy and I, this editorial almost a year ago, that we really project or warn that we should not exceed 20-25% of total deforested area. We are 16-17 over the whole Amazon basin, and that's why it's so urgent to take action to really completely zero deforestation. Not zero only so-called illegal deforestation as it is in Brazil, but it's zero deforestation. Why only deforestation in this warning? Because global warming is already increasing and we have much less control. We depend on the successful implementation of the Paris Agreement. And this reducing deforestation to zero is really within the hands of the Amazonian countries. So, can we stop deforestation? I'm sure in this event you're going to discuss a lot of issues, policy issues to stop deforestation. I just want to highlight, actually coming from a very important calculation and paper by Ana Paula, these two scenarios that we could see in the future: fragmentation or sustainability. So the question is which way we go, and what I'm going to talk to you from now to the end is what would be one possibility, one solution among many for a sustainability scenario that we call the Amazon Third Way, or Amazonia 4.0, a novel sustainable development paradigm for the Amazon. So basically, I will explain what we mean by first way, by second way, and whether we can really reach this third way. Is there a third way? The debate over the Amazon development has been always torn between conservation and development. The model of development all the Amazonian countries took for granted starting in 1960s and 1970s. Conservation has been a very effective policy. 47% of the Amazon is under some kind of protection, indigenous land, protected areas, sustainable development reserves. So this is highest in the world. So this is really noticeable, and it's been very important for deterring deforestation rates. But even that policy may be under risk. This is again the Xingu indigenous land. You can see here, you can see the encroachment here. I've shown you the temperature increase, but look at what happened as a result of 2010 severe record-breaking drought. 28% of the forest in that indigenous land burned. So these conservation areas, they are under increasing risk from encroachment of development and also from natural factors like fire, which are of course related to this encroachment and to the droughts, and droughts are becoming more extreme. So the second way is the resource intensive development. This is the model of development Amazonian countries took it. So do we want the Amazon to become a global farm or a global cattle ranch? Is it possible? Is it possible without destroying the Amazon? And when you look some figures here, I just want to tell you a little bit of the economics of this model, the profitability of current economic activities, typical mostly cattle, very low, selective logging, also low if you make it sustainable, soy, and also what would be the potential for red plus. You can see the figures there. However, when we look at the efficiency of this economy, average productivity less than 1 head of cattle per hectare. 80% of logging is illegal in the Brazilian Amazon. Average productivity 2.9 tons of soy per hectare per year. Let's say in the US 6.5, in Argentina 5.5, the average in southeastern Brazil 3.5. And also, and I'm sure you're going to discuss this issue, the carbon price is so low, 2.5 in the market. In the Amazon fund, the value was 1.3 dollars per ton of CO2. So still waiting for this market to develop, but you know, is this sufficient? Is REDD+ sufficient to protect the Amazon? So we don't think so. And of course, all these other, you can see the total value for the Amazon, the total gross economic product of timber, beef and soy is less than $125 per hectare per year. This is really very poor economy, as we all know very well. So, but what to do? Can we see the productivity is in the Brazilian Amazon is 1/4 of the productivity, let's say, of São Paulo state, where I'm now. But is this increase in productivity is sufficient to reduce deforestation? Perhaps not. Also, of course, the Amazon is under many plans of developing infrastructure, but is this development plans gray or green infrastructure? Well, they are, by and large, they are gray infrastructure. Hydroelectric power, dams, mining, roads, paved roads, transmission lines, so all of that certainly will increase levels of deforestation, because that's exactly what we know. So you can see many of these mining interests and over almost 16,000 mining claims, 82 contracts in all of the Amazon basin for gas, natural gas, and oil. So infrastructure will only accelerate the deforestation. So of course we need intensification of the existing agriculture. We need conservation. We need first way and second way. But is this sufficient? What else? So that's what we are proposing. Considering that we have this large decline of deforestation, this is Brazilian Amazon, but similar things happening in other Amazonian countries, although we are an upward trend. So that's why we are proposing, let's say, a new vision for the Amazon. In addition to conservation, in addition to intensification of existing agriculture, we are proposing the third way is a biodiversity, bioeconomy driven development. So borrowing from Tim Lanton, to tip transformative change in a socio-ecological system in a desirable direction. And to tip sometimes a system, you need a small movement, you don't need a lot of energy. But what is that clever trigger to tip the system, the socio-ecological system in the Amazon in the right direction? And so, of course, biodiversity. Why not? Very, very biodiverse, rich. So the third way that we are proposing is to really explore the potential of this biodiversity-driven bioeconomy in many industries, biotechnology, pharmaceutical, nutraceutical, food, etc., etc., etc. So let me go a little bit further. So then, what's different? I mean, many people have been claiming that for a long time. I worked at INPA in Manaus as a young engineer in 1975, and the INPA's director, Dr. Warwick Kerr, came to me and said, this is the potential of the Amazon. So everybody knew. What's new is that now we are going through the fourth industrial revolution, in which the combination of advanced technologies, the merger of biotechnology, material science, digital technologies are becoming user-friendly, accessible, inexpensive. So we could think of bringing these technologies to harness the biological and biomimetic assets of the Amazon. So, however, of course, there are some barriers. Only 2% for Brazilian Amazon, only 2% of Brazilian researchers work in the Amazon. Still, there is limited access to biological and biomimetic assets for legal frameworks, but mostly because there is very little going on really in studying, understanding, exploring sustainably those assets. And of course, there are still issues related to the legal framework complexities of regulating access to biodiversity resources. So our proposal, so it's a standing forest, flowing rivers, biodiversity-driven bioeconomy. Standing forest because it's possible, that's what we are proposing, to develop an economy with the standing forest. Flowing rivers because we think energy solutions for Amazonian countries as a whole do not need big hydropower dams any longer. So harnessing these biological and biomimetic assets sustainably with these technologies is a socially inclusive, ecologically sound development, equitable and fair sharing of benefits, so and a range of applications from non-timber value chains all the way to high-end genetic resources. So, of course, this will really exploit the almost unimaginable number of possibilities arising from biodiversity, and also going to the high end, also seeing the genetic resources as a very powerful element in this model, along with traditional knowledge. So the third way, Amazonia 4.0, is the clever combination of modern technologies with traditional knowledges, respecting, of course, and sharing benefits. Let me give you a few examples here very briefly. Of course, the acai berry, it became a global a product of global emergence and a niche market all over the planet. It's the most abundant tree species all over the Amazon basin, and has been used for hundreds or millennia for the indigenous people and traditional population, but only in the last 20 years it became a big industry, and still levels of technology in the value chain are significantly reduced. They are not very high tech, but still it brings over $1 billion to the Amazon economy. It has been translated into a very large number of products. Acai berry is very common in Brazil, in Amazonian countries, but also in many other countries. However, I want to highlight, remember the figures I showed for cattle, soy, logging. Extractivist, not in agroforest systems, $200 per hectare per year, profitability. Unmanaged. Agroforest systems average $1,000, up to $2,000 in very well managed systems. So it's much more profitable, over 250,000 tons a year of the pulp, and is supporting 300,000 people in mostly in Pará state. So the potential is there. We can see another one. This is a species, Ucuuba. Until recently, it was only timber to make sticks, and leading to almost extinction. And then a cosmetics company finds in their laboratories another use, a very important butter for cosmetics. Now it increased tremendously the income of these people because they don't chop down Ucuuba, they are only collecting the seeds and selling the seeds. So this is another example. So a few more examples is the potential for a bioeconomy in the Amazon Rio. Let me illustrate. Again, just mentioning the acai. The acai is more than $1 billion a year. Just let's compare with the products of cattle, timber, and soy in the Brazilian Amazon, $10 billion. One product is already 10% of that in agroforest systems, and this is related to 800,000 square kilometers of deforestation. But we can look at other potentials just to illustrate functional and nutraceutical food, flavors, and unique to the Amazon, of course, the classical example here, acai, fragrance for perfumery, and flavors for natural for food industry. There are many examples. Molecules and active ingredients for medicines, allopathic, herbal, and there are also many examples. Inputs for cosmetics and functional cosmetics, also many examples. And the specialized molecules and enzymes for industrial purpose, including bioenergy, many examples. So if we look at that, let's say acai, $1 billion, fragrance, $200 per liter of some essence, $4,000 per gram of surucucu snake poison using for pharmaceuticals, something between $30 to $150 per liter used in many industries, and also increase in 50% of ethanol production with an enzyme developed from Amazon biodiversity. Just to give you a flavor of what the possibilities of this new bioeconomy is. So let me go a little bit deeper. Amazon 4.0. Of course, the Amazon is not void of people. There are over 1,300 communities all over the Amazon. So this development has to address their needs. So it's not a development like Zona Franca from Manaus, that everybody flows into one concentrated and becomes a big urban area. This is a distributed development. And so we need interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary research to show ways of reaching that. So what can we do to begin to change? And then in our project, we are promoting capacity development. We think it should not be only a theoretical model, a conceptual model, or a model that would only depend on national policies. We really have to do hands-on development, and a very important element is capacity development of local communities. So we created the concept of Amazon Creative Labs, and so those will be traveling labs going all over the Amazon with modern equipment for many food value chains. For instance, chocolate, cupuaçu, very many species of cupuaçu. So this will be a creative lab for cupuaçu cocoa, for Brazil nuts, very great potential, and many others. And of course, high-end genomics. The potential is very important in genomics, and one of the labs would be really to bring the capacity for local communities to do by themselves the genome of species, plant and animal species. And so really we want to set up a large number of these Amazon Creative Labs, because we need these disruptive mechanisms. We need to bring for Industrial Revolution technologies to bear for the livelihood of the forest people. So in summary, the idea of the Amazon Third Way, Amazonia 4.0, is to make use of these tremendous assets, biological, biomimetic, reaching many consumption markets, all sorts of consumption markets, and using a number of new technologies which are becoming really accessible, and of course a challenge how to make those technologies available to the forest people to generate a number of bioindustries, and then generating process, design, biomimetics, traditional knowledge, biomolecules, materials, food, and many other products derived from the combination of the potential with the markets. And then we really get to value chains of Amazonian bioindustries, public policies, models of innovative business, entrepreneurship, cooperative startups, and also supported by appropriate education, research, development, and innovation. So in sum, then we reach what is the ultimate goal of this model, which is equitable income, jobs, quality of life, and nature conservation. So in sum, underpinning all of this model of development, the third way, is knowledge as the basis of sustainability for the Amazon, both modern technologies and also traditional knowledge. And in summary, we need really how to implement this new paradigm. I will recall these famous words and wise words by our late geographer Bertha Becker: to add value to the heart of the forest. So we need really science technology highlighting, bringing these possibilities for the standing forest bioeconomy, generating local industries, but of course along with empowerment of the local people with inclusive education for all. So I finish just to say again, this might be a tipping point in the socio-ecological system, but we need urgent great acceleration of disruptive solutions. We have great acceleration of use of resources, generating the global environmental crisis that we are seeing, but we need a great acceleration of disruptive solutions. And I thank you very much.